Let's talk about some of the notable questionable players and some of the players that kind of on the fence. We'll tell you whether or not some of these may be worth,
You start. I'll be back.
keeping an eye on. The big one, as we talked about, Aaron Rodgers, he's out, which means, we want to talk about some of how that affects a lot of the players that we have within our rankings as well. I mean, that affects the wide receivers and, especially in the New York Jets depth chart on how effective they're going to be. Do I think guys like Garrett Wilson will be still decent? Yeah, because I mean, those kind of players are really good about getting open and getting the ball. But what's up, Ty? How we doing? Welcome in. Spam code yellow in the chat for Scotty. I'll have to be joining him here in a little bit, just because I'm on that track as well. But we'll dive into some of these injuries, these key injuries, and how you should approach them. We have Kenneth Gainwell, who is also not on this list, but I don't think I have him on this list. Kenneth Gainwell and some of these.
Not.
There's a few players that we don't have on this list that we'll talk about if you guys are interested. Just if there's any players that aren't here, just let us know and we can cover those. But
We can talk about half of the Steelers team then.
Yeah. I mean, Deontay Johnson's number 2 on this list, which he's going to be missing some time. And, with Kenny Pickett needing as many weapons as probably possible, it's going to be interesting to see, who steps up and is able to kind of, fill that role. Deontay is very, very dynamic when it comes to that offense. So, Rec, do you have any insights from...
It doesn't help that there's 2 Steelers on this list.
Well, yeah, and Pat Freiermuth is the other one. Pat Freiermuth down there, number 9, is another player that, by the way, I feel like wasn't this the play? He's like
the one of the few good offensive plays we had. He hurts his hamstring.
Well, also too, there was one play where he was like the ball was thrown not very well, and he was reaching back to get it, and then it kind of resulted in him coming up, and he wasn't exactly feeling good after the hit. And so there's like
We're talking about
Freiermuth, yeah.
Okay, I got you now.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel Kenny Pickett was kind of not helping some of the injury situation there as well. But Greg Dulcich missing time in Denver. That means there's going to be some opportunities for some other players to step up on the wide receivers and tight end group for the Denver Broncos. Mark Andrews is slated to potentially come back this week. He's listed as questionable as of right now. Jerry Jeudy is inexplicably... people are talking about him coming back after a grade 2 hamstring, game 3. And I
don't know if they ever officially announced, but
either way, I even if he comes back, I don't love his chances to do anything major. Like, I just don't see him being healthy enough to be an impact player, especially the way he cuts, the way he tries to, really get off the line and get open with his route running. I just don't see that. So be very mindful of whether or not you want to start Jerry Jeudy this week. Any other? There's a lot of names on here, Scotty. Which ones stand out to you?
I mean, obviously some of these guys are out for weeks.
Yes.
I mean, I literally have a fantasy team right now, Chris, where my bench, and I have to release Dobbins, but is like Deontay Johnson, Cooper Kupp, Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson, J.K. Dobbins, and...
You have Deontay on there twice?
I said it twice. I realized it after the fact. My whole bench is injuries, so it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Freiermuth, is Freiermuth going to play, Rec? Freiermuth going to play?
I don't know yet. I think he has a concussion, so we'll have to see.
I thought it was a chest thing.
Might have been both, because I know he did get hit in the chest hard in the end zone by, I think it was Hufanga. But it was a legal hit, just unfortunate.
Thoughts on Christian Watson and Kelsey? Kelsey, I feel like, is leaning towards playing, and I think he should play. I feel like he wanted to play last week.
I think he's going to play.
There
was a report on Sunday from Jay Glazer that said there were 45 cc's of blood.
We were talking about this
removed from his knee. And I'm not even the Taylor Swift joke. And then the Pro Football Doc on Twitter is like, If that's true, there's no way he's playing week 2. So I don't know if Jay Glazer misrepresented or whatever. What I saw today is what looked like a pretty healthy Kelsey on the field, not afraid to jump up and hug his buddy.
Yeah, he's not the smartest man. Jay Glazer, that is.
Oh, okay. Travis isn't either, to be fair, but I love him.
Yeah, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, so I think Kelsey's going to play. Christian Watson, I don't expect to play. I think that hamstring muscle issue for him is going to keep him out at least one more week, unfortunately. Mark Andrews is kind of a question mark. He obviously was out week 1. Does he come back week 2? That should be interesting to see. You just got to, follow, obviously, if you have guys and, on your fantasy teams that are questionable heading to that 11 a.m. hour, check, right, hour before to see if they're active versus inactive. And even if they are, you got to kind of be careful depending on that injury. But a lot of these notable injuries on here. Eckler is going to be interesting too. He's still in our top 10, but he's a little lower at the running back spot than maybe he normally would be, just because he's got the ankle issue. Sounds like it's probably a low ankle sprain rather than a high ankle sprain, which is much better. He can return from, but like, how much run is he going to get? How effective is he going to be? Yeah. Or does just Josh Kelly get a lot of touches there? We'll see.
Yeah, and going back to Christian Watson, I think he's one that's interesting because it's like the Packers had success and they were spreading the ball around. 8 different receivers caught the ball, including 4 rookies, and they leaned on the running game. The problem with that is the fact that the running game is injured. Like we have some injuries to the Green Bay running backs. Well, at least I'm blanking.
Aaron Jones?
Aaron Jones.
Green Bay's running back?
Yeah. He when he scored his touchdown
he's
up
banged up as well.
He's banged up with that. He ran into the end zone untouched and then all of a sudden grabbed his hamstring. So he's kind of in a weird spot. So how much can you lean on the running game is another question. So there's a lot of depth.
And Aaron Jones was their leading receiver.
Correct. So that's a weird situation. So keep an eye on these guys also throughout, game the next couple days leading up to each game. You'll get all of those inactives as the Sunday morning slate hits, and make sure you guys are checking your lineups to make sure that these guys are either playing or not playing, so that you guys can make your decisions on putting in some of your bench players or going to pick up somebody off the free agent wire. But let's dive into our rankings here. Quarterback rankings. We have Hurts coming in at number 1, Mahomes, Allen, Justin Herbert, Lawrence at 5. Then we have Jackson, Burrow, Fields, Tua, and Anthony Richardson cracking the top 10. But Jalen Hurts, Scotty, we have at number 1.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of touched on it in that preview. I'm just not high on Minnesota's defense at all. So I think Hurts can probably do whatever he wants on the field tomorrow night, whether it's run or
code
pass.
yellow for me.
Yeah, spam code yellow in the chat as Chris takes a quick break here. I don't see an avenue where Hurts is like the safest play of the week. He's bound to get you a decent, a solid, if not elite start this week at the quarterback spot, where all these other guys, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys are looking at this, list and let's obviously Joe Burrow, Josh Allen struggled last week. Justin Fields was a mess last week. Tua was elite. Why isn't he number 2? We're not going to overreact to week 1, guys. So I like Jalen Hurts this week, number 1 overall. Think he against that Minnesota defense, he's going to put up some points. I'll put my boy Mahomes at 2. Keep spamming code yellow in the chat. Josh Allen at 3 is another one. Obviously, we just talked about how bad he was on Monday night. Like, I honestly think the Bills win with any other quarterback in week 1. Like, Josh Allen, not only did Josh Allen have some turnovers, they were bad. Like, some of those picks all 3 picks were awful decisions, awful throws. There's conspiracy out there that he got concussed early on a hit. I know, Rec, did you put that in about your boy? Possibly being concussed, or did I see that elsewhere?
I said something about Muth maybe being concussed, but
No, I must have seen it on Twitter that Kenny Pickett also kind of got his head slammed early on, and they're like, maybe that's why he played so bad. And then I've seen it about Josh Allen. Like, there's a hit where, like, looks like he had some contact to the head, like, hitting the ground, where, like, is that what happened to Josh Allen? Why he was so bad? Obviously, Josh Allen now gets to play a Raiders defense that I challenge anyone, I think I've said this before, to name anyone outside of Max Crosby on that defense. It's
Nate Hobbs.
Okay. Yeah. Name it good on that defense outside of Max Crosby. Challenge you.
That matters.
So I fully expect home opener for Buffalo. I think Josh Allen will, he might make some blunders again, but he's going to be able to sling that around and throw for a lot. And then Anthony Richardson at 10. I just think the rookie, listen, he's going to do he's going to do a lot on the ground, and he's going to do some through the air. He has a matchup against Houston where, like, I think that's going to be a close game. He's going to be able to provide, like, listen, him at 10 is kind of me saying, like, there's not 10 viable guys this week that I'm, like, super thrilled about. So I like the upside of Anthony with the legs, and he's going to be running the ball a bit. It sounds like his bone bruise isn't an issue that he suffered last week, so he's a full go, and he's going to be a starter. And probably, I don't think he's going to be limited. His bone bruise, it sounds like, was way more minor than like Travis Kelce's bad blood. So, yeah, and some of these other guys, Tua, I had much higher last week. I think he's going to be lower because we kind of talked about that, Chris. Like, against New England, I think he's going to be a little more limited this week. I probably have Joe Burrow lower than most people here, or we do, at 7. But
injury, how injured is he? Like,
against a division rival, and the timing didn't seem there in week 1. I know they were in bad weather in Cleveland, and is he fully healthy with that calf? I don't know. So, like, Joe Burrow is clearly a top 5 quarterback fantasy wise. Well, not clearly, but like 7's one of the lowest spots we'll probably have him unless he continues on this run of, like, just not performing. I mean, the dude threw for 80 yards last week. So,
and guys, like, if for all you guys who don't really get into the betting side of things, and you see that we were talking about over-unders a little bit earlier, keep an eye on that as well. So, like, Tua, for example, is in a game that doesn't have a very high over-under, which means that might be a lower scoring game that you might expect, which means there's not going to be a lot of touchdowns like there might be for some of these other players in some of these other games. So, with that being said, if you have, like, a player that has an over-under in their game, it's set at like 39 or 42 or 41, like, you might want to think about, how that game is going to unfold, and if it's going to be a slower game, if they're not going to be as many points, that means less fantasy points for your players that you're throwing out there on the field. So just keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, just real quick to reference that. So if you're looking for games this week, highest over-unders, Jags Chiefs is highest right now at 51.5, I think. Eagles Vikings tomorrow, 49.5. Bills Raiders at 47, Lions Seahawks at 47. Those are the highest of the week coming in, where I think right now Broncos 38.5 is the low point.
Yeah.
So, but that's 2 full touchdowns that, like, you're expecting less in one game, the highest game versus the lowest game, which is a big difference. So definitely look at the over under if you're playing in fantasy, just to get a feel for, like, all right, what is Vegas and what is the public expecting points wise here, like, for touchdown purposes and offensive, purposes in that game, obviously.
You know what's weird on this list? And last one I'll touch on before we go to running backs is Justin Fields, which Justin Fields is a strange one because they only had, and this was the case for Jalen Hurts as well, Justin Fields, some of the top guys that typically get a lot of running, only a couple designed run plays for Justin Fields, which that was kind of what got him to where he was. He's an average thrower of the football. He's not a very good, accurate thrower all the time with the football. So last year, at the end of the season, when they started utilizing him with his legs, I was like, man, maybe they tapped into something that really is going to help him be successful. and to only give him 2 design runs. I know maybe you're trying to protect him, whatever, but like that was kind of shocking to me, knowing that it's like that he's not a big thrower of the football. Like, get him to do what he wants to do. And what he's sorry, I choked on my own spit.
He's dying. He's dying, guys.
Let him
that Fields comment.
Let him do what he wants to do and what he's good at. Like,
the one thing I would argue there, and of course that's true, all of that is true, but like most of his long runs last season and like were not design runs. It was passes where he ended up leaving the pocket and getting a lot. So he still had 60 yards rushing, which you guys think about that, like 60 yards rushing, that's 6 points in fantasy. That is what, 150 yards passing. So if you have a quarterback that throws for 300 yards and 0 rushing yards, that's the same as Fields throwing for 150 passing and 60 yards rushing. That's how big of a difference in fantasy. I like Justin Fields is obviously not a top 10 quarterback in the league. No one's disputing that. But for fantasy purposes, like I just feel like he's gonna get that. I mean, he went for over 1,000 last year. He has a matchup that I kind of like against Tampa this week.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he'll bounce back a little bit.
I think they give him more to let the man run, let the man cook, let him do it. Let's get to we're getting to wide receivers next. Wide receivers. All right, we have Tyreek, Justin Jefferson coming at number 2. As much as like that's the crazy thing. Justin Jefferson had an insane week 1, and it was overshadowed by Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill was that much better. So, it's kind of
you could still put 1A, 1B.
1A, 1B. It's like you could easily have those two right next to each other or at the top. But Stephon Diggs is an interesting one here because we have him at number 3, but yet he still has some of these weird vibes coming out of Buffalo. Like, there was a reporter that we had in our Discord. There was a reporter that was like, even in Buffalo, if the reporters are talking about Stephon Diggs and saying that, all these things about him on an open live mic, waiting for a press conference to start, like there's weird vibes happening. And I just don't know if Stephon Diggs is necessarily like fully engaged in this team and this season. But yet I still feel like he's able to produce because he's that good. Scotty, we have him here at 3.
Yeah. I'm going to say something weird right now with Stephon Diggs. If you're a Buffalo fan, I think you should be hoping that he doesn't finish 3rd in fantasy points this year. Like he should be outside the top 10, and I think you're better off. What I think is kind of happening in Buffalo and what happened in week 1, we had the weird offseason with Diggs and Allen, is now Allen feels like he needs to get Diggs the ball, right? Like if he doesn't make sure Diggs is happy and healthy and please, like then he knows there's going to be off the field stuff that he's going to have to deal with, and he doesn't want to deal with it. So he forces the ball into Diggs, which is going to make Diggs a great option in fantasy, but I don't think it's great for Buffalo moving forward. I think Buffalo, you drafted a tight end in the 1st round in Kincaid to go along with Knox. You still have Gabe Davis out there. You have some pieces. I like James Cook quite a bit at running back. So you have a lot of pieces. Try and spread the ball out if you're Josh Allen. And if a Buffalo fan, you should want them to spread it out. I just think it's a detriment to try and force that ball into Diggs. But I expect them to do so this week, and that's why we have him at number 3 overall.
Yeah. Amon-Ra St. Brown coming in 4, Calvin Ridley 5. Then we have Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase, who the Bengals laid an egg week 1. It had zero excitement coming out of that game. If you're a Cincinnati Bengals fan, we don't know whether or not Burrow. We talked at length about his health and whether or not he's going to be able. But I think that Jamar Chase should be able to have a better week this week. We have him at 6.
Yeah, and a lot of people, some will be like, I can't believe you have him that high, and others will be like, he's way too low. Obviously, most drafts, he was probably the number 2 wide receiver after Justin Jefferson off the board. in fantasy this year. So dropping to 6 after week 1, to me, is kind of a big reaction. I think eventually, like, he might have another bad week this week, to be honest. But that's where, like, maybe if you're in a fantasy league where someone's going to overreact that has Jamar Chase, that's the time to swoop in, maybe an offer a trade for some of these other guys on the list that have maybe started off better, but the upside moving forward. Jamar Chase is going to get his. It's a matter of time. It's not if, it's when. It may not be this week. And to me, I just want to mention, like, hey, maybe you're in a league where people overreact and get too emotional after 2 bad weeks. Jamar Chase, that was their first round pick. He's not producing. I'm ready to move on. Maybe you could manufacture a trade to get a player that was taken top 5 in fantasy drafts, giving up a guy that clearly wasn't in that mode. So hang in there. And if you're an owner of Jamar Chase, don't abandon him after 2 weeks.
You're fine.
That'd be a big mistake. But he may have another bad week this week. I don't know. But we got him here at 6 because the upside is clearly there, and he's proven it. He's proven it in his 2 years in the league, obviously. So
yes, we have Davante Adams, who had kind of an underwhelming game. Again, going up against PS2 Denver, who's one of the top couple corners in the entire NFL, and so. I mean, honestly, Davante Adams was almost overshadowed by Jacoby Myers, who's questionable this week. Both actually listed as questionable, at least as of right now. But considering Jacoby Myers could be missing time based off of concussion protocols, whether or not he's ready or not, we'll find out here, like leading up to the game coming up this weekend. But if he's unable to go, that kind of opens things up for Davante Adams, which I think is a little bit more likely to play this week.
Yeah, I like Davante this week. I think he'll play. I think in a game at Buffalo, the Raiders offense is going to have to be a little more aggressive, score a little more points. Can't kind of do what they did last week against Denver. And then you also don't have, Pat Surtain in the secondary like he had to face last week. So to me, everything points to Davante having a good week this week. Whether they win that game or not is not likely, but like they're going to have to throw the ball to hang in against a Buffalo team that I think is going to be able to move the ball in that Raiders offense. So I think Davante gets featured early and often and has a big week this week.
Let's see. Jimmy G doesn't throw deep. He could have a low fantasy output this season. Davante, that is. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that, Davante should have a decent season. Will he have as high of a ceiling? Maybe the ceiling is lowered a little bit because Derek Carr did like to air it out a little bit more. But I don't think that's going to just absolutely devastate his fantasy value. I think he's still going to be up there. So I wouldn't get rid of him or anything by any means, but I think that it's going to be I think Jacoby Myers helps out if he can come back and be able to be dynamic on the other end. So that way they can account for him as well, because he had a career game that first week coming out with Las Vegas. I mean, couple touchdowns and all the yards to go with it. If he ends up being as good as, Davante Adams, if not better, considering week 1, it's going to open things up even more for Davante. So that's only going to be compounded as the year goes on. Let's see. First of all, there's no bothering questions.
Why we're here.
That's no. If you have to pick 2 to start week 2, DJ Moore, Raheem, I always say his name wrong, Mostert, whatever.
There you go. Mostert. The first time.
Brian Robinson Jr. And Tyler Algier, Nico Collins. Tyler Algier's a weird one because it's like he had such a big week, but yet I don't know if they're easing Bijan Robinson into the season as a rookie, and they're kind of trying to take it slow out of the gates. If that's the case, then I think it's going to be a couple weeks for Bijan to get in the mix to be the guy. So I think if you're early on, maybe lean towards a Tyler Algier. Knowing that
he seemed to get, he had a big week 1.
I think his days are being that good are numbered because they're going to be probably leaning on Bijan as he gets incorporated more into the offense. So maybe that's where I would lean if I had to start one.
Two. I'd probably go Robinson and Algier, considering DJ Moore in the mix there as well. Those probably the three. Raheem Mostert, I have concerns about that run game in Miami.
He might also miss this week.
Yeah, and Nico Collins just not there yet. So we'll see down the road, but I don't know that I trust Nico Collins enough yet.
Keep close.
Yet.
Devontae has the same ceiling as Cousin Greg in Succession.
I love Cousin Greg.
Cousin Greg. By the way, I'm getting through Succession. I think we've been blazing through it.
And I know Nico had a pretty good week 1, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Don't. Hey, overreactions, right? Overreactions. Don't just let things pan out, right?
Is it a PPR or is it a
standard
half point? Is it standard? What is it?
Miami runs running back by committee and throws too much to pick up any Dolphins running back, says Ty.
And Mostert does nothing from a catching standpoint.
Oh, yeah, you're right. STG, I was completely wrong. You're right. No, Chris. Atlanta's move is to invest in high draft picks and barely use them. Yeah. True. That's that. I'm sorry. I misread that whole thing. You're right. They just let them chill.
I always feel like Mostert has played as many games as Michael Thomas over the last few years.
It's crazy. Let's talk running backs. Christian McCaffrey coming in number 1, big week 1. Saquon getting shut out though. Number 2, the Giants getting absolutely embarrassed. I threw a meme in our Discord. It was like all the teams in one grouping. We all scored a touch. We all scored some points in week 1. And then they have the Giants in this little circle in the bottom right corner that we have yet to score points in the NFL this year. So there's that. And Saquon was a beneficiary of being on the bad end of that because the minute they were down by like more than 2 touchdowns, it was like, all right, well, you built a team around one dude who is not in the game plan to play from behind because running the ball when you're that far behind isn't probably the best way to get back into the game. But we have him here at number 2 because we like the matchup, Scotty.
Yeah. I mean, this is all... Listen, most weeks, Saquon's talented. I don't know. Keep Close is like he's so below average. In no world is Saquon below average from any stretch of the imagination. He wasn't even bad in week 1 against one of the best defenses in the league. He had 12 carries, 51 yards against the Cowboys. Now he gets to play what everyone views as the worst team in the NFL, Arizona. They were embarrassed week 1. I think they noticed how bad that offensive line was at protecting Daniel Jones. I think they feature Saquon early and often. They get up, they ride him throughout. I think Saquon's in for a big week this week.
By the way, Dallas Cowboys defense. Are we underrating defenses? Should we like the days of taking a defense with your last pick? Like, there's been some decent defenses so far, and like this year, Dallas defense might be the defense that you would probably want to take in like those middle rounds. It seems like. I mean, we're getting there. We're getting to that point.
They were I think they were the highest scorer in fantasy in week 1.
I think they scored
all players.
I think they scored more than like 4 or 5 of the top quarterbacks or something, or I don't know. It was weird. There was a weird stat. I don't quote me on it, but there was like a handful of quarterbacks that combined didn't score as much as the Dallas Cowboys defense. So yeah, the Dallas defense went off. The San Francisco 49ers defense was pretty good. So you got to take this Saquon with a grain of salt on how good that defense was. They're going to have a much better matchup week 2. Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard round out the top 5. Bijan, we hope that he can get some more run, get more ingrained like we were just talking about, but we have him here at 6. And then Austin Eckler, who is dealing with I said it before the season, Scotty. He always has some sort of lingering something. And it only took till week 2 for him to get to this point. But we have him here at number 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is because of the injury to that ankle. That's why he's at 7. I kind of referenced it earlier. He had a great week 1, points wise in fantasy, but I just don't know where he's at health wise and what that means for touches this week. So you kind of slide him at 7. If he was fully healthy, he'd probably be a little higher on this list. And if he's not great, he shouldn't be in the top 10. But slide him in at 10 or at 7. Sorry. It feels like that's about right.
Yeah.
You still start him this week if he's active, obviously.
So Gutswiller. Let's see. Thank you guys so much. I will definitely be tuning in the future. You guys are awesome. Hey, appreciate that. Love. I will be back. Love the show. Thanks for the welcome. You guys are always welcome. Don't think your questions. Ask as many as you want. Also, Gutswiller, if you haven't joined the Discord, you could always ask us questions in there. All of our community is great. They're very welcoming. So you could join in on the Discord. I put the link in the chat there. So join us anytime, but we are live Wednesdays, Sundays, and we might be mixing in some NBA on Thursday nights for a quick hour show. So if you like NBA, that's your spot. All right. Travis Etienne, who had a big week, comes in at number 8, but then we have a new addition to our top 10, and that's James Cook. James Cook with the Bills, who I think, by the way, the Bills, I saw the line at 8.5 a little bit, and I was like, I think that's a good line. And then I was going to take it, and I had it on my list. I think I sent it as one of my may swap in on my best bets, but I didn't do it, and now the number's at 9.5. So it's fine. I figured the line would go that way. I figured this game should be like close to 10, double digits, but it is what it is. That being said, James Cook might be in line for a decent game here.
I'm just ready for the breakout game of James Cook. And in week 1, people thought maybe that would, there was going to be a split carry situation. They add Damian Harris from New England in the offseason at the running back spot. James Cook had 12 of the 16 carries from running backs. And then it was Latavius with 2, Damian Harris with 1, Hardy with 1. So James Cook is clearly the feature back. He had 4 grabs in week 1. Now, he didn't have a ton of yardage. I mean, wasn't crazy effective, but let's keep in mind that was against a really good defense in the Jets. Now when he faces a Raiders team, I kind of think this is the breakout week for James Cook. I think James Cook goes off. I think he's going to get utilized more and more as the season goes on, and I think he's potentially a top 10 back overall in the league moving forward. I like him a lot this week at number 9. That's probably way higher than you'll see him anywhere else in some boring rankings that just run out the same rankings every week. But I like James Cook a lot this week to break out and finally have that game that I feel like he has been since they drafted him last year. I liked him, and now he's finally going to get those lead back touches and get the opportunity in an offense that's explosive against a bad defense. Let's go.
Yeah. I think he can be. I think like last year, I had him on a couple teams, and I was waiting for him to like kind of be that guy, and he just never ended up being that guy. This is, I think, the year that he takes that step forward. They utilize him a bunch. They use him in the passing game. They use him in the running game, and they kind of make him that featured back, which is necessary for them to be successful. So, I think there's other wide receivers here that didn't make our list, but let us know if you have any questions on any other particular wide receivers. I think Robio.
These are running backs.
Running backs. I'm sorry. So running backs. Sorry. Let us know if you have any questions on any of the running backs. I need more fantasy points out of him, says D. Cole. Hey, I think it's coming.
Start him this week.
It's coming. All right. Let's get
the Bills play again.
The what?
What?
Who do the Bills play again?
The Raiders.
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to tight ends because we love talking about tight ends at the after dark hour. Travis Kelce is surprisingly back We have him. Number one, we think he's going to be playing. I think it's more of a probable, even though he's listed as kind of questionable whether or not he's going to play. It's more than likely, I believe he plays, which is why I think jumping on the Chiefs this week is going to be probably something you want to do if you're going to be betting on this game. But Travis Kelce is one of the most impactful tight ends when healthy in the NFL, and it's not even close. I mean, we talked about the disparity of number 1 Travis Kelce versus the difference between 2 and 12. It's like crazy the amount of output that one player can have, which is why he comes in at number 1, Scotty.
Yeah, this is just if Travis is healthy and playing, he can't not be number 1. Cuban, real quick, going back to running backs, did ask, how about Eckler's backup? If Eckler's not active, Josh O'Kelly is almost an automatic start. Unless you have 2 other, but you can't. If Eckler's one of your running backs, you don't have other beasts. So if Eckler's out, Josh O'Kelly's a great option and would probably be a top 10 option at running back for me moving into this week. So we'll have tabs on that, but that's a good question. Tight ends. The other one we have featured here, Dallas Goedert, Chris.
Yep.
I have Dallas Goedert on a couple teams, and he put up the same amount of fantasy points that I did in week 1, Chris, and that was disappointing.
What did you put up? Like 12, 13?
I put up 0, Chris.
Oh, my bad.
I know. Like in my dream fantasy, I put up quite a big game, but in reality, it was 0. I just think Dallas Goedert. That's one of those situations. Let's just not overreact. They just gave him a nice contract in the offseason. They like him. He's gonna I mentioned I'm not big on Minnesota's defense, so I think Goddard has a bounce back game. Let's not freak out after 1 week. He could easily be actually top 5 this week. I mean, some of the guys, the tight end position just seems like a bunch of guys that are hurt. Like Darren Waller isn't fully healthy. Mark Andrews is the question mark.
Pat
Fryermuth's not fully healthy. Like, it's kind of a mess at the tight end spot right now. So just kind of trying to piece that position together. But if you have Goddard, don't bench him after 1 week. Play him again this week.
Tight ends this year, so far after week 1, is like a completely dead zone across the, like, there's nobody really that's like standing out whatsoever. And it's like, Travis Kelce, we need something out of TJ Hawkinson. I mean, again, Mark Andrews has been hurt. Darren Waller has been whatever. Like, nothing. There's nobody that you could really get excited about. Again, defenses has been more exciting than the tight ends up until this point. So that should change, though. We have some interesting defenses, though, this year that we're going to get into in a second. But Mark Andrews and Pat Fryermuth, keep an eye on them. They are kind of battling through some things injury-wise, banged up early on in the season. So you will want to check their status leading up to their week 2 matchups.
And honestly, I didn't put him on here, but I probably should have. Luke Musgrave. My boy Luke Musgrave. He's ready to blow up. He had a couple balls last week where if they were thrown accurately, he would have had an even larger week than he already did with 50 yards last week in his first ever start with the Packers. Tiakola Ingram didn't do bad. Will he be better and targeted more? Going up against the Chiefs this week, I think in general, historically at least, we'll see if the Chiefs have adjusted, but haven't been great against tight ends in general. So I expect Evan Ingram to, I mean, he may not go off. Evan Ingram's never a guy that's going to go for like $150 for you, but like he's kind of predicated on like you need probably a score for him to have a big week, but maybe 60 yards and a touchdown if he has a good week is certainly reasonable.
Like you probably his standard you're most likely going to be used to is getting like 6 or 7 points for you on your fantasy team, and then if anything on top of that is a bonus.
Well, if he gets touchdowns, it'll be more than that.
Well, yeah. I'm just saying, like, predicated on touchdowns, but generally, if you get 6 or 7 out of him, I think you're feeling okay about what he's going to be getting you. But I think he's going to have a decent week this week. A TD, no matter the yards, is considered success for the tight end. Yes, 100%. Green Bay has a tight end. We talked about that. Helv,
right.
welcome in. Shout out to Helv, who is obviously one of our Action Lab rats. Welcome in. Hope you had a great stream. What were you talking about over there, Helv? What were you guys getting into? Thanks for the raid. Canada. Yeah. Anything from up north. We're getting into, for all of you guys who are joining us, my name is Chris. This is Scott. We are your host for the Action Lab, your premier sports entertainment talk show on the internet. We are live every Wednesday and Sunday, but we are talking some fantasy football rankings. We're on the defense special teams. Cowboys coming in at number 1, obviously putting up more points than anybody else in week 1 of fantasy football. And they take the top spot. Niners defense, no joke. They played well. They shut down Rex Steelers, and it wasn't even close. I don't know if it was the defense or if it was the quarterback play. What was worse?
That game was so unclose, Rec, that there was a quote from Trent Williams, the offensive lineman of the Niners.
I saw that.
He hoped the Steelers got a few more first downs because he was tired. He didn't want to have to go back out there. As an offensive lineman, he was just begging the Steelers to be a little more prolific on offense.
The Steelers didn't get their first down. I think almost before halftime. I think was the first down they got.
Funny enough, it was when we got the touchdown drive. That was our first down.
Oh,
the touchdown drive.
Ohio State. Yeah,
the one and only touchdown drive.
It was like I mentioned earlier. Tony Pollard pulled that out during the college thing for Sunday Night Football. The University of Memphis.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't even know about the anymore. Giants, though, are the number 3 team here on our defense special teams rankings, and based off of the points that they gave up in week 1, they're still looking to score their own, but we have a lot of Giants love here on this. We have Saquon a little bit higher. We have the Giants D a little higher. We have, matchups change everything.
Playing Arizona, and the defense actually wasn't that bad last week against the Cowboys. It was special teams and their offense that was in shambles. So while the defense wasn't great, it wasn't that bad. Now you get Arizona. I'm putting them up there. I had the Jaguars at 4. Do we have the Jaguar? Is that a typo or is that real?
I don't know. Is that what you sent me? Maybe I messed that up.
So. I don't think so. Why? I mean, they're playing the Chiefs. I don't think the Jags should be a 4.
Well, maybe this is super accurate then. With all the turnovers and that are incoming. I don't know. Maybe I messed that up. Maybe that's
all those dropped passes. You're anticipating more dropped passes.
They're gonna get into the psyche of Kadarius Toney, and he's gonna drop everything, and it's gonna be an excellent defense for week 2. No, I think I might have messed that up. But let me.
Yeah, the Jaguars are nowhere to be found in my top 10. It's all good, Chris.
It's all good.
It should be the Saints.
No big deal.
I think the Saints. But
I think you take out the Jaguars, slide everyone up.
Yeah.
I think I have the Bills actually in at like 8 here.
Yeah.
And then the Browns and Ravens at 9 and 10.
You're right.
Scott with the salt. It's all good. I'm just like,
we both struggled with graphics tonight, Scotty.
Should be at 4 when they're playing the Chiefs. Broncos,
and the
Commanders,
Chiefs are that good at offense.
Okay. Good comment. Good contribution, Rec. Broncos and Commanders, lowest point total, so they both find their names on here. And the Browns, Chris. Obviously, the Browns defensively looked incredible in week 1 against the Bengals. Obviously, weather played some role in that, but still, you had Myles Garrett doing like crossovers between the leg dribbles before he gets in on Joe Burrow, just teasing and taunting the offensive line of the Bengals. So it feels like the Browns pass rush is here to stay. And I mean, I don't know. We did see an offensive line not exactly hold up in Pittsburgh last week against the
And then
49ers. So,
and now at least half of them are injured.
well, that might be a blessing in disguise after last week.
Oh, really? James Daniels was an elite guard last year. I don't know what happened to him.
Milwaukee's in the
so-
chat. I don't see how you don't have the Jets. Well, I looked at the Jets over under, and it actually has dropped to 38.5. Obviously, Dallas Cowboys will be holding the Jets down, and it could be a grindy game. And by the way, the Jets are plus 9.5. That's a weird game. I mean, anytime you're getting that many points in a low scoring game, I don't care. It's like, that's a weird line.
I don't think Dallas is going to have to force the ball down the field, which is going to limit the Jets' potential for turnovers. And without turnovers, their pass rush is good, not great. I don't know if the Jets score a ton of points like they did this past week.
I mean, it's looking like the Jets, if this all comes to fruition for the Dallas Cowboys based on this 9.5 point line, the Dallas Cowboys aren't going to allow the Jets to score anything in this game. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, I think this is a weird game. Jets don't have a terrible defense, but I think that this is
Jets have a good defense, great defense.
Yeah, so I think this is going to be this will be a muddied up game. It's not going to be high output on either end.